in Acts. And we've been reading in Acts. We've been studying in Acts. And I'm going to skip over a couple of chapters. We're going to go to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9 is about Saul and his conversion. Now, you'll remember that Saul is the one who is, by the way, ladies, a week from Sunday is the deadline to register for the women's weekend at a discount, Women's Day. Acts chapter 9. So we saw earlier in Acts that there was a stoning. You recall that? Who was stoned? Stephen. And who held the coats while Stephen was stoned? Saul. So we have Saul, who is participating actively in the what's the word I want? Persecution of people who believe the truth about God, who believe that Jesus Christ is their Messiah, who believe that he came to accomplish much for humankind. So chapter 9 in Acts, we have Saul. He is fuming. It says in the remedy, Saul was still fuming threats to kill any who joined the Lord's spiritual health care team. Those would be people who are, such as yourselves, who are wanting others to know the goodness about God and who he is and what he's done. So he gets these arrest warrants. He's going to take him to the synagogue in Damascus. He's going to see who he can find that has joined this group. He's going to take him as prisoners back to Jerusalem. And he's ready to really, he is zealous, if you will. He is on a mission. And verse 3, as he approaches Damascus, a light from heaven blazed around him. He threw himself to the ground and heard a voice say, "O Saul," yours might say, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" To which he replies, "Lord, who are you?" "I am Jesus, and it is me you're attacking. Now you need to get on your feet and go into the city where you'll be told what you must do." What does it say in Matthew chapter 25 when we have the sheep and the goats? You remember that? We're going to study Matthew 25, and we're going to study Isaiah 58. So if you want something to spend some time on, spend some time in Matthew 25, the second half, and Isaiah 58, because we're going to go there. Matthew 25 and the sheep and the goats. Jesus separates the sheep and the goats. One's on his left, one's on his right. And he says to those on his right, he says, essentially, "Thank you for feeding me when I was hungry, clothing me when I was naked, giving me drink when I was thirsty, visiting me when I was in prison." All of those things. And the people go, "What? When did we do that? If you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me." So, this is the perspective I'd like to throw at you. Jesus says to Saul, "I am Jesus, and it is me you're attacking." Who is Saul attacking? Who does he think he's attacking? The people. He thinks he's attacking people. We think we're helping people. Do we need to help Jesus? So maybe our language, maybe our perspective is a little bit twisted. So here's the language that I would hear. We're in Wenatchee, and we're part of a ministry that was so cool. I swear my best friends were 20 homeless men who had half of them spent half of their lives in penitentiaries and were hard and fast criminals. They were murderers. Some of them were murderers. I mean, one of them, well, I've told stories about Wally. He's died now. But Wally would pray, "God, I've broken some of your commandments. I've broken 5 of your commandments. I've broken 7 of your commandments. I've broken 9 of your commandments." And one day he just prays and he's just weeping and says, "God, I've broken all 10 of your commandments." And I'm going, "I killed somebody." Right? He did. He did. He killed somebody. He was like my buddy. We had these friends. I knew I was the safest woman in the city of Wenatchee. I've said this over and over. I knew I was the safest woman in the city of Wenatchee. If anybody had come to do anything to me in the city of Wenatchee, they would not live through it. I had 20 friends who loved me, and I loved them. And we had this relationship and this friendship that was so cool. And then people would say, "Are you going to feed the homeless?" No, I am not going to feed the homeless. There's an offense in that to me. No, I'm going to go have lunch with my friends. I am not going to feed the homeless. Language. Okay? Language. So imagine being the one on the other side. When we first started, there were tables that were set up, and we would stand on one side, and then here they'd come in, they would all line up, all these men. We'd only had men, a couple times we had women, but men. And in the summer, we'd have 60 of them, and they'd all line up. There they are, they're all ready. Okay, we're going to have a prayer. All the hats would come off, and they were just, they were like in this thing. And then we would serve food onto plates, and they would go sit down. One day, one of them comes up to me and says, like, what's wrong with the food? You guys won't ever eat it. And I would say to some of our folks, hey, we should like go sit with them and visit and all that. No, I'm good. I'm good right here. I'm going to stay right on my side of the table. I will take a spoon and I will put food on their plate. But I'm not walking around this table because that's the scary part over there. No, that's the most fun part. So Rod would go down an hour before anybody got there with this big, huge pot of coffee that we'd always make at home. And he's out serving coffee to all the guys. And then the guys would help set everything up. It was Rod and our friends who lived out on the street. There was Johnny and Pablo and Arturo and Paco and Wally and, help me, Rod, Francisco and Estanislao. And I mean, these were friends. They were friends. So what if there's this moment here where Jesus speaks directly to Saul and says, dude, it's me. I am in the face of those people. I am the one who's out on the street. I am the single mom trying to raise these children. I am the one who's all alone. It's me. Who was Jesus? Who did he hang out with? Who did Jesus hang out with? The unacceptables. The sick, the lame, the blame, the outcasts, the unacceptable. Yes, but in a different way. So the context is, where was he hanging, making a difference in someone's life? He goes to the Pharisees and he wants to make a difference in their life as well, but he speaks differently to them. He hangs differently with them. And I'm not here in a position that I want to take to go hang out with preachers and evangelists who are kind of doing their thing. That's not what God called me to do at all. He didn't call me to be that person. He didn't call me to go hang out with them. He called me to meet Wally and Estanislao and Paco and Arturo and Pablo and Danny and Erica and Kim.
He didn't call us to be church potatoes.
This isn't what Jesus came to create. Jesus didn't build this. Jesus came to build a body that said, I care about others. He came to build a body, and he demonstrated that. That was his life. Have you seen that? That was his life. Saul, why are you persecuting me? It's me, Jesus, who you're attacking. Saul stands up. Man traveling with him, they freeze. They're like scared. They can't speak. They hear something, but they don't see anybody. Saul gets up, and he is blind. Here's a man who can do anything, has power over people. I mean, he has a letter in his hand that says he can arrest every single one of you right now and take you to Jerusalem. And he made murderous threats. Killing you was an option. He can't see. He has to be led by the hand by others. And he's taken to a house where he sits for 3 days and doesn't eat or drink. for 3 days. He doesn't know what's going on. Have you ever felt like you don't know what's going on? You know, they talk in this book. Jen talks in this book about they knew, God told them that they weren't going to stay where they were. Her husband was a pastor. He had a salary. And they were being told clearly from God, this is not where I want you. Well, where do you want us to go? You'll know when you get there. Anybody else in the Bible have that experience? Who had that experience? Moses had that experience. Who else did? Abraham had that experience. Joseph had that experience. So, here you are. I can tell you I've had that experience. Rod and I have had that experience. I was asked to come over here in 2005 and do some Bible work for a church. Happened to have been the Puyallup Church. I worked for them for 10 months, which seemed like an eternity. And Rod and I talking, deciding whether I was going to come over here or not. I mean, he's got a good job over in Wenatchee. We own a home. You know, we got kids. Tisha was the last kid at home. She was going to be a senior the next year. I was going to be like a totally involved senior mom. And now we're being asked to move her senior year. Like, who does that? So the fleece was, if Tisha, without knowing why I'm asking her if she'd like to go to Auburn Academy, says yes, then I'm supposed to take this job. So I called her up. Hey, Tisha, we were at camp meeting. She wasn't there. Hey, Tisha, have you ever thought about going to Auburn? Yeah, I've kind of thought about that before. Well, so would you want to do that your senior year? Yeah, I'd do that. I was like, I went. Okay, then. So I guess I have a new job. So I came over here. We're not going to sell the house. We're not going to move. We're not going to do any of that. And saying to each other, I know it came out of my mouth, in 6 to 12 months, we'll be together. You'll be here, I'll be back home. 6 to 12 months. I will not live apart longer than 6 to 12 months. We didn't live together for 26 months. I thought it was going to kill me. God was silent. He was totally silent. I've said retrospectively, had I known, Jen speaks about this in the book, had I known that Rod and I wouldn't live together for 26 months, I would say, man, this is like really an awesome opportunity, but I got to say no. I would not have come. We wouldn't be here in the manner that we are right now. So sometimes God is silent. Don't be afraid. Just go. So they were told to go. He went to his employer, the senior pastor, said, God's calling us to this thing. And within less than, 2 months, they're unemployed. No salary, praying. God could be like, just have a salary. I have no idea where they're going or what they're doing. Just go. We have no idea where we're going or what we're doing. Just go. Just go. Take a step and then take another step and take another step. And I don't know. Are we taking the right steps? Wanting to. Are we not wanting to? It is an adventure. And we're learning stuff like every day, like every week. We're learning something new, something more, to be able to be at the place that God's trying to get us to. I started college when I was 43 years old. Who does that? I didn't go to college when everybody else did. I thought I was in love with somebody who was not very nice and went that direction instead. And then I went in a whole other direction for, almost 25 years. I mean, it was like totally different from probably what the plan was. I have no idea the point I was just going to make. Just go. Just go. Yes. Where was I going, Jesse? It failed me.
Doesn't it just come?
Well, it is.
Like
It's going in the manner of being sent. Who will go for us? God says, who will go for us? Send me. So I believe that it would be both. It's coming into this, it would be phase one. It would be phase one. Well, it's not going to God. It's going on the journey that he's inviting us to go on.
Right. He's on the journey.
Yes.
And he's inviting us, so he's saying, come with me.
Yes.
He even said, follow me. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So we're sent.
Are we willing to go with God as he calls us to come with him? Yeah.
I like that better because it reminds me, because language, right?
Yes.
It reminds me that those people are not alone.
Yes.
God might not have hands to hug them or wash their feet there. He's waiting for these ones. You know what I mean?
That's right. And we don't know where we'll find them. We're just supposed to be moving and go. When we do this is when we do this, we're not meeting them. Except if we're meeting here for the purpose of understanding God's word, edifying each other, lifting each other up, supporting one another, putting teams together, being in the same mind, the mind of Christ, being the same mind together. And I'm watching this body pretty radically change in our thinking, in our understanding the context of who God has called us to be. If we did not have a place to sit down in, we would still be okay. We've learned in 5.5 years that God intends for us to be in the community, not sitting in a building. If we can understand that we come here to be encouraged, to be edified, to understand God more and more and more, hearing more direction from Him, so that our purpose is there, not here, then we become the church, not a church. How does that sound? So that when, I'm sorry? So New Life Adventist Ministry, God wanted us to be in the beginning and not just this. So we have spent most of our time creating this. The planning, the setting up, tearing down, the time that's invested, the resources, well, not so much the resources, because we're pretty intentional about that, not doing that. So now as we have the opportunity to plan together, to work together about what is God inviting us to do? Where is He going that He's inviting us to come alongside Him so that we can be those hands and hugs and feet and meals and whatever it is, because we don't know really exactly what it is. So here we have this story that Saul, sorry, hasn't changed, doesn't have a new name yet. So Saul is in this home, and then God goes and He talks to somebody else. He says, Ananias. Hey, Ananias, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go over to this house, to the tanner's house. I need you to meet Saul of Tarsus, because he's blind, because I made him that way, so he could sit down and have to be attentive for a minute to me. And I want you to go over there, and I want you to pray over him. I want you to lay your hand on him, because I got big plans for him. And Ananias says, yeah, no, he wants to kill me. So have you ever had conversations like this? God, I don't think that's a good idea. I've done that. Yeah, God, no. I have a funny story that actually happened to me. I was going to have dinner with Tisha one night. She was at the academy. I was going to have dinner with her one night, and as I'm driving past Safeway driveway here in Auburn, and I'm thinking Auburn's a big city, I haven't lived here very long, all of a sudden scrambled eggs came to my head, and I don't have any eggs, so I quickly turned into the Safeway driveway, because I got to go get some eggs, because apparently we're having eggs for dinner tonight. And there's this, I was on my phone, which you're not supposed to be, but it wasn't a law then. It's in 2005. And I was on my phone, and I pulled into this front spot. And while I'm on my phone, I'm kind of sort of getting off the phone. I see this guy sitting on this curb, and I would do it, except I have a skirt on, so I can't. So he was sitting on the curb, and he had these groceries bags on the ground and a backpack and his head in his hands. And this voice said, you need to go ask him if everything's all right. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that, God, because I live in the city now, and you don't do that. My mother told me, don't talk to strange men. And so I have this seems like it's long conversation about, you need to go, and no, I'm not going to, and no, really, you need to go talk to this guy. And so I start walking over towards him, and I chickened out. and I'm walking past him, and something, I swear, something took hold of my shoulders and squarely turned me around and said, I said, you need to ask him if everything's all right. Happened just like that to me. And so I said, excuse me, I know this is kind of odd, but is everything all right? No, it's not all right. I need to get to work. I'm going to be late to work, and I don't know where my girlfriend is, and she's got the car, and here I am, and my battery's dead on my phone, this guy was like high anxiety. And I said, oh, well, I have a phone, and I pulled my phone out of my pocket, and I said, you can use my phone. He said, I don't know the number. It's on my phone. And I said, well, let me see your phone. So he opened it up, and it's, the battery's, low battery's going to die. It's like going to go off any second. But we got the number. No, I said, he said, see, it's just not going to work. And I said, no, this is when you pray and you say, so God, keep the phone on long enough to get the phone number. So we get the phone number, and he calls to let them know that, he's late or going to be late. And he looked at me and he said, what church do you go to? And I said, Seventh-day Adventist. The what? Seventh-day Adventist church. Oh. Well, I've been needing to talk to somebody about God. Of course, I'm working over here as a Bible worker, and I said, oh, well, that's kind of what I do, talk to people about God. To which I hear in my head, you need to put him in your car and take him to work. And no, I will talk to the guy on the sidewalk in front of Safeway, but I'm not putting him in my car. You need to put him in your car. You need to take him to his work. Now, he worked in Renton. He's sitting on the curb in front of Auburn Safeway, and he lives in Kent. How does that happen? He lives in Kent. There is a Safeway in Kent. He's at the Safeway in Auburn with no car, and he works in Renton. And so I put him in my car, and I'm scared to death. So I put him in my car, and I said, no, just before I put him in my car, I've asked him all kinds of questions, and we've talked about lots of things, and I've run out of everything intelligent to say. And so I just blurted out of my mouth. I said, so his name was Tony. I said, so Tony, are you safe? Because you're supposed to know, right? Really, you're going to ask somebody that? So Danny, are you safe? So I took him to work. All the way I get to talk to him about Jesus and who Jesus was. And it was amazing. He called me. I gave him my card. He called me 2 months later. Hey, Gayle, this is Tony. Do you remember me? I took me to, and it was such a huge experience for me. It was I will never forget this guy. And he started studying more about Jesus. And it was so cool. It was God, you're amazing. My first, over here, really big experience with God. And Ananias says, no, that's not a really good idea, God. And then he went. And this is what I want you to know about Saul, who became Paul. Do you remember there were 11 disciples after Judas left and went and hung himself? And the disciple says, we need 12. So they cast lots, and they chose Matthias. Remember that? He was not the 12th disciple. You see, it's Jesus who calls his disciples. And Jesus called Saul to be the 12th disciple. And he had every experience that the other disciples had. He had not walked with Jesus when he was here, but Jesus walked with him. He had a Pentecost experience, outpouring of the Holy Spirit, as Ananias came and laid his hands on him, and he was filled with the Holy Spirit. And he immediately went and proclaimed who Jesus was, after he had denied him and persecuted those who claimed Jesus was who he said he was. And he wants to do the same thing with you and I. You see, this conversion of Saul didn't change his zealousness, but it changed his perspective. And I have watched in this body as zealousness from one perspective has changed to a zealousness in a new perspective. To be zealous, to be a neighbor, to listen carefully for God, to be willing to step and make movement when he calls us to, when you have no idea. We have no idea what we're doing, right? You and me? We have no idea what we're doing. But we're doing something. We're attempting to do something.